there, welcome back to Local View. Today on our show we have John and Michele, and we're going to talk about the importance of safety fire prevention. So welcome to the show, John. Michele?
Thank you very much.
So your company, Bernie Current Safe.
Correct.
It basically specializes in fire prevention, how to stay safe.
Well, it's electrical safety, which leads to fire prevention, because we know now that electrical issues are a principal cause of fires. So if you keep your home safe electrically, then you can prevent fires from occurring.
And do you mean like if you have like electric problems that may have been expired, or just people aren't checking up on their smoke detectors?
Well, it's a combination of things, like outlets and switches. These are all mechanical pieces of equipment that have an electrical component. And like anything mechanical, things wear out, things break down.
Okay. Can we go over what you brought here and like how it can cause a problem?
Yes, by all means. Well, this is an example of a dryer outlet, or it could be a stove outlet, and basically that's the way you see it when it's in the home. And using heat detection, thermographic imaging, which the fire department uses as well, we're able to detect a very high heat signature. But just visually looking at it, you wouldn't detect that. But if you can see what's happening here, see that burn? So this is potentially a fire waiting to happen. And now with electricity rates, time of day use, people are doing their laundry at night and then putting it in the dryer and going to bed. And unfortunately, that's when fires start, in the middle of the night, right? And dryer connections is a classic area where a fire could start.
Is this a rumor? Is it true? You know, in the dryer when all the lint forms and you have to take it out, and if you don't do that, is that like a big no-no?
It's dangerous. Yeah. What happens is the dryer hose, the size, the diameter constricts with all of that lint, and it creates back pressure or heat buildup. And that's a cause of fire. And not cleaning the trap, of course, because that lint is combustible material, right,
Absolutely.
Michele?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Michele, you can go into those items.
Okay.
These
alarms. All right. But before I get into alarms, I really would like to talk a little bit about just preventing fires to begin with, because that's where it starts.
Yes.
If you can stop a fire from the beginning, then these are just safeguards, right?
Right.
So we need to look at what are the common causes of fires. And when you look at what the common causes of fires are, the number one cause of home fires is cooking, unattended cooking. So, I mean, we could all go out for dinner every night, but that still wouldn't mitigate the problem that we have in our homes.
Yes.
Make sure you stay in the kitchen, watch what you heat. If you had an oil fire, put a lid on it, turn the heat off, and let it cool down. Other fire situations we're looking at is heating equipment not being maintained properly. Unattended candles.
Candles, that's
right?
a big one.
So I mean, and that is exactly what our partnership with Bernie was about, was new ways of getting into the home to get fire safety information out to the family. So we looked at some of the causes of fires in our municipality and really picked out some of the most common ones.
So that was the big one that you noticed, is specifically cooking stoves. And you've probably seen many incidences where something like a big fire happened over something that could have so easily been prevented.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and we have things that people wouldn't suspect are causing fires. Do you have a cell phone?
Yes.
Have you ever lost the cord?
The cord? Lost it? No. But I know people who have.
Sure. And where did they buy the new one?
Somewhere cheap.
Right, absolutely.
That's right.
And the problem is that they're not buying the cord that was designed for that particular phone.
Oh, is that?
And it's causing fire issues. Laptop computers being left on a surface that can burn, left on a bed, left plugged in all the time.
Is that, yeah, because I was going to say, while the phone is charging and you're using it, is that harmful as well?
I've heard of instances. I haven't known any of those instances in the city, but yeah, you read about them.
Or a laptop when it gets heat up a lot and you're leaving it on the bed.
We had a fire caused in the city a couple of years ago, and it was a young lad left a laptop sitting on a couch in the basement. And they went out for dinner, and when they came home, there wasn't much left. So making sure you're unplugging those things. Don't leave them just plugged in and sleeping. Turning them off, powering them off.
Yeah. So, and John, I was telling you how I have a fire extinguisher at home, and you're
Yes.
saying that is very outdated, Bianca, and get rid of it. So what's up to date these days?
Well, in terms of a fire extinguisher, Michelle could probably speak more succinctly about that, but I think a 5-pound one would be better.
What we recommend is at least a 5-pound, and there's a numerical rating on it. So the ABC refers to the type of fire it will extinguish. A is ordinary combustibles, B is flammable liquids, C is electrical. That would be the type that we would recommend for a house. If you're going to have one, have at least a 5-pound. The one that you were referring to, you have about 3 seconds worth of chemical. With a 5-pound, you could have 15 to 18. And you really do, if you're not expert at using a fire extinguisher, you need that extra chemical to get the fire out sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, and for the alarms, do they expire? Like, how often do you have to check up on them?
They do. And if you look at a smoke alarm, all smoke alarms have a date stamp on them now, telling you when to replace them.
They didn't always, though, right? Or-
They have since the year 2000 had a date stamp on them.
Okay.
So whether they're battery or whether they're electrical, they should be changed every 10 years.
Okay.
Okay, and this also is a smoke alarm. Doesn't look like one, but it is. Kind
Yeah,
of
that's
cute.
why I was like, that thing.
It's a,
Convenient, because you can travel around with it, too.
this is a first alert. This is a kitty. We don't endorse one over the other, but we like to have different display models when we're out doing a display, just to be able to talk about the different devices that people have in their homes. So yes, they do expire. You should test them by pushing the button at least once a month. You'll notice this one has another button. Do you know what it's for?
No?
Most people don't. It's actually called a hush button.
Oh, okay.
So instead of madly waving a paper,
Oh my God, that's me.
okay, push the hush button. It will silence it for 7 to 8 minutes. It's going to chirp at you once a minute while it's on bypass, and then it will reset.
Okay. So, and the only way you would know to change it is by looking at the date, right? And it says when it expires, and then it's time
Yeah, or
to
if
get
it's
on.
acting up, and I mean, they do act up occasionally.
Yeah, sometimes they just go off for no reason.
But you know what, that's why it's so important that people register products when they buy them, because there's been a few recalls on different makes. So if you register a smoke alarm when you've bought it, if there is a recall, you're going to get notice. You know,
Okay.
everything should be registered. Any electrical appliance especially should be registered, because that's the only way they have of contacting you to let you know that there's a problem.
Okay. And how can we look out for and prevent like carbon monoxide from happening?
I just happen to have one of those with me too. Carbon monoxide is produced from incomplete combustion. So it could come from a car exhaust, it could come from a gas fireplace, gas hot water heater, anything that burns a fossil fuel. And what we need to do is make sure that we have one of these on every level that someone is sleeping on. And it is a good idea to have more than one in your house.
Yeah.
I think the law now is one on every level, right?
It's one on every level where there's a sleeping area.
Yeah.
And that's been really like popular in terms of cases where people have been in their garage with the car on, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like, I find that a lot of people, when you hear a fire alarm or any alarm, you just assume it's just testing. So what advice can we give to those people? Because a lot of times it is just a test, but obviously it's better to be safe, but it just goes off. So it's better to leave. Like, what would you do?
Well, that's why I say if you have more than one, if they're both going off, you know you have a problem.
Yeah.
If you only have one and it's going off, a lot of people say, it's not really a big deal. But if you have other symptoms, like if you're experiencing nausea, dizziness, a headache, that's a sign that it could be carbon monoxide poisoning.
Okay.
Flu-like symptoms without the fever, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's indicative.
Yeah.
of
But I
severe
mean,
poisoning.
again, it goes back to prevention. Prevent it from happening to begin with. Don't warm a car up in the garage. If you're warming a car up outside, close the garage door so that the exhaust isn't drifting into the garage,
Yeah.
because it will eventually permeate the walls.
And that molecule, the CO molecule, is so small, it could actually go through cinder block.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very insidious.
And carbon monoxide attaches to blood cells quicker than oxygen does.
And it's important to also know what to do in those cases, and if it's a false alarm, because you don't want to be calling 911 and wasting time where they could be somewhere else saving a life, right?
Right.
So where can people go to purchase all these items?
They can be
Just-
purchased at any retail store that sells these type of things. Canadian Tire,
Okay.
Home Depot.
All the big
Walmart,
it's very easily
Rona, all
attainable.
the big box stores
Yeah.
should carry them. I mean, it depends what type you want in your house. One key thing that people need to be aware of is if you have the electrically interconnected smoke alarms or carbon monoxide alarms in your house, you need to make sure that when you change one, change them all, because they don't always interconnect properly. So you can't mix Kitty with First Alert. Whatever brand you have in your house that's electrically connected should be the same. And if you look at the packaging, and I don't have one with me, but if you look at the packaging of an electrical smoke alarm, it'll say right on the package which models it will interconnect with.
Oh, okay.
So I think the biggest key, though, is also for people to be prepared is to have a plan and know how to get out of their own home. Because in the panic of a fire, people forget.
Yeah. And for those with kids or pets, what are some good preventative items to maybe not have? Like maybe instead of those type of like candles that you light up, maybe the battery operated ones.
Absolutely. And make sure you lock up all the lighters and matches in your house. Eliminate them down to just the essential ones that you need.
Do they sell any type of like stove alarms that cause the stove to maybe disconnect when it's getting way too overheated? Is there anything like that out?
I have heard that there is a company out there.
I saw something on Shark Tank.
Yeah,
So I
I've
was
heard that there
wondering.
is a company out there that's
Okay.
trying to get it on the market. I'm not too sure whether they have.
It's a device that sits where the fan is, and it'll
No, I believe that it plugs
into the.
into the actual, the stove plugs into it to that plug.
Okay.
Because somebody was talking about it the other day. So I believe that there is something like that out there. But there's something else that has been on the market for years, and it's a device called the Safety Element.
Safety element.
Safety Element. And what it is, designed for seniors. Instead of them having the typical 4 burners, the coiled burners, this device actually has to be done by an electrician that has been trained by this company, and it is installed to prevent the temperature to get past the point of boiling water.
Oh.
So you're not getting clothes being ignited, you're not igniting oils. So there are some safety devices out there. There's also one that they have created that is for a microwave.
Yeah. And how important is it to spread awareness about this and having things like fire drills at schools growing up?
It's exceedingly important because we take, for example, electrical safety and fire prevention. We take things for granted. We never assume that we're going to have a fire in our home or we're going to have an electrical issue that could cause a fire, and invariably it happens.
I know everyone thinks it's just not going to happen to them with something silly like a laptop, but it's usually those silly instances that cause it to happen.
Exactly.
And so with this pamphlet, is this where people can also go online and learn more about
Yes,
this?
and we also have it translated in 13 different languages.
Okay, so no excuses.
This pamphlet we created in partnership with Bernie.
Okay.
Our crews go door to door from May to September doing the Home Safe Home program.
Oh.
So they will knock on your door and ask you, do you have a working smoke alarm on every level of your house? Did you know that the leading cause of fires is unattended cooking? And do you have an escape plan?
Okay.
So those are some of the topics that they'll talk about when they're at the door. So we were able to, with our partnership with Bernie, be able to get out there and really knock on doors. We also use these pamphlets when we're in schools. I just used a bunch of them this morning because I was at a newcomers center teaching fire safety. So it's something that I would hand out there.
Can I expect you knocking on my door? She's like, I don't want to see you ever again.
Well, probably not.
Probably not, right. It'll be a fireman fully garbed and the fire
Someone
truck
tall,
outside.
tall, dark, and handsome.
That won't be me either.
Okay, thanks so much for coming by. It's a really important
Thank you
issue
for
to talk
having us.
about. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.